So again, thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Tina Wahardo, registered dietitian and health educator with Bronson Community Health. Today is January 18th already. We're a couple of weeks into January, maybe a couple of weeks into our New Year's resolutions. We will find out. I'm hoping this class is going to be very collaborative and we will learn from each other as well when it comes to goal development. But today's class is called Be Smart, right? SMART is an acronym for a way in which we can use this way to develop different type of goals when we are working on our New Year's resolutions. And I just want to confirm, you guys can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you guys. All right, if you guys have any questions throughout, anything you want to add to the conversation, please feel free to use the chat. I've got that up on my screen as well, so I will be able to kind of interject and answer your questions as we go along. So at Bronson here, we always start with our classes and giving you information on how you can find care and help at Bronson if you need it, especially being the new year, the beginning of 2024. Maybe you're kind of in a situation where you're looking for a new doctor, maybe you're looking for a specialist. Here are some resources for you. On the bronsonhealth.com website, we have a feature called Find a Doctor, in which you can search for available primary care providers in your area, or you can search for different specialists. Maybe you're looking for, an orthopedic surgeon or an endocrinologist. You can search for those providers on the Find a Doctor feature. If you don't use the website very often, you can also call our care advisors at the phone number listed on the screen, and they can help you search for a specialist or a provider that you might be looking for. If you are using our S.M.A.R.T, which is just like your electronic medical record through Bronson, where you can find your lab results, you can request for prescription refills through S.M.A.R.T. You can look at your provider visit notes on there. If you ever need any assistance with S.M.A.R.T, our Bronson Health Answers department is available to you to answer any questions or have any technology assistance that you might need. You can reach them again at the phone number, or you can email them at the email listed on the screen as well. And then if you would need any billing or payment plan questions or assistance, our Bronson Patient Accounting is also available too. And then whether you have S.M.A.R.T or not, if you are ever referred for a service at Bronson, maybe you got referred for an MRI or an X-ray, and you're like, I don't know how much that's going to cost me out of pocket. I would really like to kind of get an idea of that before I schedule. You can call our price estimator team, again, at that phone number listed there, or if you're using S.M.A.R.T, then you can, get that quote through the S.M.A.R.T as well and kind of get an understanding of what that service is going to cost you after your insurance coverage. So those are just some things that we have available here at Bronson to get us started today. So I said I want our class to be collaborative. I've got some questions for you guys. So I am going to start off by asking you guys, did you set a New Year's resolution so far this year? Did you set a New Year's resolution? Go ahead and unmute and answer if you're willing to, or go ahead and type your answer in the chat. Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe we're like, not yet, still thinking about it. Where are you guys at?
This is Esther again. I did not really set a New Year's resolution, but I am kind of interested in looking into eating less red meat over this year. I didn't make it a definitive thing. I just want to explore that.
So a consideration, maybe an intention, but necessarily haven't set like a specific goal around it yet.
Right, yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to goals. Like, I don't usually set goals January 1, right? Like, I'm still thinking about my year to come. I'm usually setting goals more around March time frame. That's usually when I'm about ready. So it sounds like most of you guys are saying, I'm trying it out. No, I haven't set. You guys are pretty split, actually. Some of you have, some of you haven't. Somebody says, yep, they're focusing on their eating habits. That's what I hear from Esther as well. Maybe not a specific goal, but maybe a focus and an intention. And that's fair too. I think when we have an intention to do something, I think we could still have
from
a
Mass
goal
General
related to
Brigham.
that intention.
What are the worst foods for high cholesterol?
Wendy, I just went ahead and muted you just to let you know. Nikki, I don't call them resolutions, I call them want tos. Okay, I hear you. I want to do something. And maybe it's not that specific New Year's resolution, but I think when we talk about the SMART goal format, we're going to hear that want to concept. So I like that too. Okay, very good. Thank you guys so much for sharing. My next question then, for those that did set, and I've got a handful of you guys that did set a New Year's resolution or a goal for yourself already. How are you doing with that New Year's resolution? On a scale from 1, yeah, not so good so far, to 5, I'm doing really good. How are you doing with your New Year's resolution? So the answers I'm seeing in the chat, I've got a 1, I've got a 3. Anybody else? A 4. So Nikki and her want to has got a 4, so that's great. All right, it sounds we're kind of on a little bit on the lower end of that scale. So hopefully we'll learn a few things throughout today's conversation to get you a little higher up on that scale when it comes to your resolutions in the future. Thank you guys so much for sharing. All right, so my goals for us today, what we're going to talk about throughout this presentation, we are going to talk about the benefits of setting goals, right? Setting goals that are important, right? We always are setting goals that are important. I think the struggle tends to be the flexibility in those goals. So we're going to talk about setting goals that are important, but also having that flexibility. We are going to learn how to make SMART goals, what SMART even means if we don't know currently. Then we're going to take some time practicing how to set SMART goals, right? We're going to do some practice at the very end. So hopefully you guys will be able to share kind of what you guys learned throughout that process. And then I'm hoping that you guys will be able to leave today's class having identified one SMART goal for yourself that is important for you to work on in the upcoming maybe week or month, whatever it is that you've set for yourself. So that is kind of our outline of what we are expecting for today's session. So goals can be an intimidating word. Setting goals can be intimidating. It can be challenging. It can also be really motivating, right? If we set a goal for ourselves and we write down that goal, it helps us remember what our intention is, what our want to was, right? And tracking that progress can help us stay, on track. It can help us revise those goals. So writing down our goals can be one way in which can really keep us on track and motivate us throughout this process of changing whatever it is, whether it's, decreasing our blood cholesterol levels, eating less cholesterol, eating less red meat, somebody shared, right? And sometimes when we're looking at goals, maybe we keep those to ourselves. But if we're comfortable with sharing those with other people, that can be, motivating potentially, right? If you are comfortable in sharing that, it can kind of create that teamwork, that support group type style when it comes to those goals. My next question for you are, what are some of the reasons that you've not been successful in the past with your goals? What are some reasons that you've not been successful in the past with your goals? Go ahead and type that in the chat or unmute if you are comfortable with that.
Tendency of cooking
Go
high
ahead, Wendy.
cholesterol food.
Say it again. You like high cholesterol foods?
No, my husband cooks
your husband,
for me
yeah.
and doesn't seem to care about how much cholesterol or calories are in the meal.
Okay.
And they're
So,
good and I eat it.
yeah, understood, right? We have other people that we live with that maybe have different goals, right? And those goals don't align. And so that can influence our own personal decisions. That's a really good statement. Some of the other things that I'm seeing in the chat that you guys are sharing are food is too good. Absolutely. Food is delicious. Food is fuel. That is a good thing, right? So then somebody says habit forming goals are harder to plan out than a project-based goal. I'm very curious about that, Nikki. If you would be willing to maybe unmute and share about what you mean by project-based goal, I would love to hear more about that. Spouse being uncooperative, loss of motivation, no way of measuring this incremental success. Love that. That's really that concept when it comes to SMART goal creation, is measuring the small success. Perfect. Esther agrees with Paulette, which I think might have been, spouse is uncooperative. Putting their goals, agendas ahead of my own. Sometimes to keep the peace, though I'm not feeling very peaceful inside, right? So maybe that kind of contradictory feeling, like you want to work on yourself, but also have other people to please, and the cost of healthy food. Nikki, I see you unmuted. Did you want to share?
Oh, sure. So for a project-based goal, that would be like last year I had one of decluttering my entire house. So that was something where I can say, okay, this room is for this month. And so it was very, well, it's a project. It had an ending point.
Yes.
Whereas a healthy habit, it doesn't really have an ending point. So it's been a little harder for me to kind of gauge and plan, but I've been working on it. So I have a plan this year.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I hope you'll be able to share that plan at the end. Nikki, I just have a question then. Have you heard of and used SMART goals in the past?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, all right, sounds good. And that's one of the things that I love about SMART goals, and you know, there's many different ways in which to create goals. I like SMART because it has that kind of time frame component and that end point, even though the end point is in regards to SMART goals, right? And usually when we're talking healthy habits, we want them to be long term. So I understand that. So thank you so much for sharing about the project-based goals. All right, very good. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Okay, so we've got barriers, right? That is important to recognize and realize, just acknowledging the fact that goal setting is not easy. Healthy habit change is not easy. There are challenges around that. And so let's talk about some of those. I think some of the most significant challenges that I hear about most often is that we end up creating unrealistic goals, whether you identify with that or not. That's what I hear, I think, most often from people, that we create these big goals that are just a little bit too challenging to start off with, right? If we're trying to change health-related habits specifically, right? Because it takes a little bit more time and intention. And we often talk about focusing a little too much on those long-term goals, right? If you look at these sticky notes, they're maybe not health related, but these are big goals that we see on the screen, right? Write a bestseller book, become a millionaire, run a marathon. Those are long-term goals. Yes, thank you for the chuckle, right? Because we're not going to be able to set that goal if we're not a runner, right? Immediately. That's not the goal that we should be focusing on, but instead focusing more on those short-term goals as we continue to improve. And maybe that long-term goal would be running the marathon, right? Also setting goals that are important to you. You know, if we're setting a goal because somebody else wants us to set that goal, right? I think about, you know, maybe going to the doctor's office and you're having that conversation with your provider and they've got a different idea about how you want to change things compared to you, but maybe you're feeling that pressure. You know, it could be a partner related, it could be a provider, but if you're not aligning with that goal, or if you're not feeling that that goal is important to you, then it's probably not something that you're going to be working on a regular basis. And then identifying that why, right? Why are you setting this goal? What is your motivation for setting that goal? I think we don't often spend time doing that. We're like, I got to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it. But like, taking that time and identifying why am I doing it? What is the root reason for me wanting to make that change? And not just writing down the goal, but writing down the motivation so you can continually look back at that statement and say, okay, yep, I'm feeling a little rejuvenated now because I'm remembering why I'm doing this. Now, you have to ask yourself, right? All of our whys are going to be different. So why are you wanting to achieve this goal? I think that is first and foremost that we have to identify when we are going to be setting our goals. Why are you wanting to achieve this goal? Whatever it is, right? Decreasing our cholesterol, eating less red meat. Why are you doing it? Is it because you're wanting to work on your self-confidence? You want to feel better about yourself? You want the ability to, I heard somebody going to Chicago, right, to be with their grandkids. So, you know, the increased ability to play with kids or those grandkids, not feeling so much pain or stiffness or not being able to feel like you've got enough energy to play with them, just living a long, healthy life. Or maybe you got diagnosed with something at your most recent provider visit, like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and
Oh, yeah.
really trying to work on that diagnosis so it doesn't lead into something bigger. What is your why? Not just why, but you know, who do you want to be at the end of that goal, right? We're working on these small goals, but then also taking a second to look at that long term. Who do you want to be at the end of that? How do you see yourself when you've met that goal, right? Or do you see yourself being a stronger person, a more active person, somebody that's just a little bit more calm or peaceful? Maybe you're a helper, right? So you're like, I'm going to take this, I'm going to use this, I'm going to be an inspiration to other people, or maybe a role model for other people, right? I heard the challenge when it comes to, you know, family influence in our personal decisions. And so that could be something to be a role model for potentially, right? It is hard to change other people, but we can potentially change ourselves. That's what we do have control over. So I kind of already talked about this, right? Small goals, thinking in short term instead of long term, but really taking those bite-sized chunks out of that long term, right? Nikki shared, you know, the project-based goal of decluttering the house. That's a big goal. But instead, right, those bite-sized chunks of just focusing on one room per month, right? That is more of a bite-sized chunk. And at the end, you had a decluttered home, right? That was the why, that was the motivation behind it, but having to work on those short-term goals in the process. They tend to be more achievable when we're looking at smaller goals. We have more success when we're focusing on smaller goals, and that can lead to that long-term success that we all desire when it comes to healthy habits. So, question for you guys. Are goals meant to be changed and revised? What do you think? Are they set in stone and never should be changed, or do you think we should allow ourselves a little flexibility?
Always allow flexibility.
Always allow flexibility. You're absolutely right, Wendy. Anybody else disagree? And some grace. Yes, can be changed and revised. You're absolutely right. Good. I think so too. That's my stance on that. Because we know that, you know, life doesn't always go the way we want it to, right? So we have to allow for that flexibility and grace. And that's where I'm coming from my personal perspective, right? I don't know if any of you guys identify that with this, but I think we all have good intentions at any time when we are creating that goal. But for me personally, I don't feel like I take the time to sit back and actually review that goal on a regular basis. What about for you guys? When you set a goal, do you take the time to review that goal and how you're doing with it? That's not an official question here, but I want to hear from you guys.
I don't think I do. I just figure that's the goal I set and I've got to plow towards that. And I think that's a good point that, you know, maybe recognize it's not working and you need to adjust it. Yeah, it's a good point.
That is my struggle, right? I'm like, no, I set this goal, I'm going to achieve this goal, right? It's maybe that kind of like perfection type mind frame too. Like if I don't meet this goal, then I've failed. But that's not true, because when we think about that long term, there's still a way to reach that long-term goal, even if it doesn't look like the way we initially intended for that goal to kind of plan out, right? Nikki says that's the plan for this year. So I'm assuming maybe that taking the time to review those goals. So I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one, right? That struggles with that part of goal setting and achieving goals, is that they are intended to be revised. We have to, we spend the time to identify our intentions, identify our want tos, and creating those goals. But we have to take the time on a regular basis. Maybe it be the end of the week, right? Maybe it be the end of the day, depending upon how much time you have available to review those goals. We have to say to ourselves, what's working? What's not working? Like, why am I achieving this goal? Why am I not achieving this goal? Why is it working? Why is it not working? Right? We're going to kind of look at some of those things today. If we're working on eating less red meat, right? I'm going to continue going to that one because that's the one you shared. If we are working on eating less meat, but at the end of the week, we identified that we had 5 servings of red meat, maybe that is more than you intended it to be. And why is that? Is it because I don't have any, white meat available in the freezer to thaw for my meals? Is it because I haven't been able to find a way in which to cook that white meat that works for the other people that live in my home? It might take a little bit of problem solving and brainstorming to revise that goal so you can meet your needs in the long run. Okay. All right, so I think we are all in agreement that progress is not linear, right? It's not a straightforward, straight upward pattern. That we're going to have some good days, and we are going to have some challenging days, and we are going to have some good weeks, and we are going to have some challenging weeks. But my recommendation is to track the progress of your goal. So again, we've taken the time to create the goal, we've taken time to review the goal, but write down the progress that you've made, right? I'll go to the decluttering of the home, right? So you've got your decluttering of the bathroom on January, and you've got the decluttering of the bedroom in February, and you're writing down that progress, right? In a planner, maybe it's on a wall calendar. You're like, check, yep, got the decluttering done in the bathroom in January. I was successful. If it's more on a week to week basis, right? Maybe one week you did really strong, you exceeded that goal. The next week you're like, oh yeah, I had some challenges this week, so I didn't do as good as I wanted to. But at the end of the month, if you are seeing that in a big picture view, right, that you've been working towards increasing or decreasing whatever that goal is, right? You're seeing it from a big picture rather than just from the day-to-day standpoint of being like, oh, today wasn't a good day. Oh, today wasn't a good day. And now we're starting to lose motivation. So if we take a step back, review the goal, track the progress so we can see big picture, then it's going to be more likely to keep us motivated and continue working on that goal. Does anybody else have anything to add? Okay. And then we have to celebrate, right? Somebody said, but food is too good. And so sometimes we celebrate with food. And if we've got a food related goal, then we might have to work on creating a non-food reward or celebration, but taking time to acknowledge that progress has been made and celebrate that, right? It creates motivation. And that's what I was saying. Like, if we create a goal and are comfortable with sharing it with somebody else, then they can kind of share in that excitement with us, right? Of course, it could go the other way, and they could also be a source of potential problem solving and assistance there, but kind of creating that team environment to your goals. And maybe I even identifying a family member or a friend that has similar goals and motivations for you so you can work on this together. All right, so ask Nikki, but what about the rest of you guys? Have you heard of a SMART goal before? Have you heard of SMART goals before? Go ahead and answer that in the chat or unmute and answer.
Not really,
Nikki said
but
not really.
similar things. I'm
Okay,
looking for a kickstart here. Help
Okay.
me. Get
All
going.
right. Yes, very good. All right, so as Nikki's got to go, thanks for joining. Somebody says, yes, they've heard of SMART goals. No, yes. Yes, Paulette's already wrote one this year. Great. Not really. All right, you guys are a mixed group. All right, very good. All right, Wendy says she needs a kickstart. So let's start talking about SMART goals. SMART goals are one way to create a goal that I feel is detailed enough to move us in the right direction, but also allows for this tracking and revision that I've been referring to. There is research to show that using SMART goal formats does lead to success. SMART goals are used quite often when it comes to health education and behavior changes around health. So that is why I'm using that format for today's conversation. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to back up one slide again. So SMART is an acronym, as I mentioned, and it means goals that are specific, goals that are measurable, goals that are achievable, realistic, and timely, right? Nikki had shared about that project base. There's an end point, so it's got some sort of time commitment to the goal. I'm going to break down each of those, letters on its own. I'm going to break down each of those letters, and at the end, we're going to kind of come together and talk about that again. So what specific means is that we are creating a goal that specifically identifies what you are going to do, and as somebody mentioned, what you want to do, right? We said that we got to create goals that are important to us, that align with our values, that align with what our long-term vision for what we want our life to look like. So it's a goal that's quite specific rather than a general statement, right? So for example, I say, maybe I look at my life and I say, I really have got to start eating some more vegetables, right? So that's the goal that I'm going to be using for today's example is that, I will eat more vegetables. Slightly specific, there's still work to be done on that. Because I know that vegetables are important to my health, and that aligns with my goals, my want to, my healthy life vision. So it's specific. Vegetables are what I'm going to be focusing on. We then have to take it one step further and make that goal measurable, right? How am I going to measure that I have succeeded at that goal at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month? How will I know that I have achieved that goal? And that's where I say, instead of using words like, I will eat less red meat, right? I will exercise more. I'm going to stop eating fast food. Those are general statements that aren't very measurable, right? At the end of the week, am I going to ask myself and say, well, I wanted to eat more vegetables, but how am I actually going to know if I achieved that goal or not? So instead of saying more, I would make that statement, that goal say, I will eat 1 cup of vegetables, right? So instead of more, instead of less, instead of stop, we want an actual quantity to that. And then achievable, so the A in the SMART goal format. What am I actually going to be able to? What am I actually going to be able to do? What's in my control to achieve and accomplish this goal, right? So I look at this and Well, I can eat more vegetables at lunchtime, right? Maybe that's an area that I've identified in my life that really needs some work, right? I've got vegetables down at dinner, but I really could start increasing some vegetables at lunchtime. So now I'm expanding upon this statement that I made earlier. I'll eat more vegetables. I'm making it more detailed so I can use it for tracking purposes, right? So I've revised that goal to say, well, I can eat more vegetables and I will eat more vegetables. I'll eat 1 cup of them at lunch 3 days per week. So at the end of the week, I can look back at that goal and say, did I do it? Right? Because I've put it on my wall calendar. I've been tallying, I've been check marking my days to track my progress on that SMART goal. Now, I mentioned earlier, right? We got to create goals that are realistic, that are important to us, that align and fit with our values and what our long-term vision is for our life. So again, just acknowledging that these have to be realistic goals. Again, I'm not eating 100% of my meals and snacks being vegetables. I'm only eating vegetables, right? I'm just trying to increase my vegetables by having 1 cup of vegetables 3 days per week. So realistic goals and goals that have some sort of time end to it, right? So for this, I say I will eat 1 cup of vegetables at lunch 3 days per week. And I'm going to do that for the next 2 weeks, right? Because it's going to take some time to change that habit. If I'm struggling to eat vegetables at lunchtime, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks time period and maybe more, right? But whatever works for you. But I've got a period of time at the end, those 2 weeks, that I can say to myself, did I meet this goal? Did I not meet this goal? Why or why not, right? Now I can go back and revise. If I say, nope, I didn't meet this goal, then I can say, what are the barriers? Why am I not meeting this goal? Is it because I'm buying fresh produce and it's requiring chopping and I don't have time for that? I can take a step back and say, hey, there's the grace, right? There's the flexibility. Can I achieve this goal of eating 1 cup of vegetables at lunch 3 days per week by using a more convenient form of vegetables, like a frozen vegetable to have on hand? So I'm more successful at the end of these 2 weeks. Now, if you look at this goal and say, boy, at the end of the 2 weeks, that was super duper easy. That wasn't even a challenge. We still revise that goal, right? We revise it now to really up it, right? Or it's forward progress in our goals. So maybe it's 2 cups of vegetables at lunch 3 days per week, whatever aligns with your goals. So that is a SMART goal format. So I started out with a goal that was not in SMART form. It was, I want to eat more vegetables. And I think sometimes when we're looking at intentions or want tos, I want to, but what am I actually holding myself accountable to, right? To actually achieve that long-term vision of what my life is. Instead, I changed it from I want to eat more vegetables to I will eat 1 cup of vegetables at lunch 3 days per week for 2 weeks. I've hit all of those checkpoints. I know what I'm going to do. I know if I've achieved that goal or not. At the end of those 2 weeks, I know if I need to revise that goal to make it a little bit more challenging, or if I need to revise that goal to give myself a little bit more grace and flexibility. So that is SMART goals. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take some time and we're going to work together as a group. And we're going to turn some of these non-SMART goal statements into SMART goals. We're going to practice them so we know how to actually use them in our life moving forward after this class. So my first non-SMART goal statement is, I want to exercise more. That is not a SMART goal. What suggestions do you have for this statement to make it SMART? You can either type it in the chat and make it a SMART goal, or if you're brave and you want to unmute, I would love to hear your voice.
A statement like I'm going to have 3,000 steps 4 days a week for 3 weeks. Something like that.
Absolutely, yes. I will have 3,000 steps for 3 days. I think you said for 4 weeks, whatever it was, right? It was very specific at 3,000 steps. It was measurable, right? I can put my step counter on my phone. I can use my watch. I can use a pedometer that I can put on my waistband. I know if I've measured that at the end of the day. Any other suggestions? Oh, missing the why. No timeline, not specific. Oh, Paulette, I think you're saying maybe why that's not a SMART goal. That would be true. No timeline, not specific. I want to exercise more. That is not a SMART goal. That is absolutely true. Wendy, I see you unmuted. Did you want to say something?
I'm an exercise freak, and I usually exercise every single day, but the older I get, the more challenging it is.
Okay.
And I'm exhausted. Anyway, so my feeling about this is maybe I should just try to exercise every other day or reduce the amount of time that I exercise. Unfortunately, as we grow older, it's just not happening like it used to.
Sure. Yeah.
I need to be more realistic about it and not make myself nuts over it.
Yes, because that causes stress, right? And stress
Yep.
does nothing good for our health in the long term either. So I think that's that grace and flexibility we were talking about, kind of revising that goal and say, maybe this isn't what I can do anymore. Or maybe even, I don't know where you're at, Wendy, but let's just say you're doing 60 minutes of exercise every single day, right? And maybe
Used to be.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So maybe you're identifying that 60 minutes at one time is not realistic anymore, but maybe I can do 20 minutes 3 times a day. It might be breaking down the goal into that.
Okay.
Yeah, good. All right. I don't see anybody else there. So what about this one? I want to stop eating fast food. That is not a SMART goal, right? It's a general statement. I want to stop eating fast food, but it doesn't specifically tell me what I am going to do, right? It's kind of a negative statement. And we're trying to make these be positive statements, positive goals. What are you going to do? If your intention, you want to, is to not eat fast food any longer or decrease how much fast food you're having, what can you do instead that is a SMART goal to replace the fast food? So what can we do here with this?
Just limit the times you go to eat fast food. You limit it. I avoid it completely. My husband doesn't, but I try not to eat fast food at all. But
And so adding to that statement, right, it might also be, when do you tend to need to rely upon fast food, right? If we are, working a full-time job, is it, during lunchtime? And so maybe it's, in regards to a bit of meal prep and meal planning for lunch options to bring to work, so then you don't feel the need to go get fast food. So that one takes a little bit more problem solving. So you can throw anything out as far as a SMART goal there. Maybe I'm going to meal prep, 3 days a week for lunch for the next 2 weeks and see how that goes for me.
okay.
Mhm. Does anybody else have anything to add to that one? That one's a little bit more challenging. Hopefully you guys are making connections and figuring out how to do this. Now this SMART goal format, it is not just health related, right? It talked about exercise, we talked about food, but it could be something else. It could be in regards to stress management, right? And I want to meditate 3 days a week, for the next week, or maybe it's in regards to something financial, because when we're doing New Year's resolutions, it's not always just exercise and nutrition. Maybe it's something financial. So how can we make this non-SMART goal, I want to spend less money, into a SMART goal? What can we do with this one if we wanted to create a financial goal?
Designate certain amounts of money that you can spend. That makes sense.
So maybe like a budget for each
A budget,
category. So
sure.
creating a budget, yeah. Or flipping that, right? Because I guess I align this. I want to spend less money in the same sort of like stop eating fast food. Like I want to spend less money, but what do I want to do? I want to actually save more money too, right? And so it might be creating the goal of saying, I want to put $50 a week into the savings account, right? For the next, 2 weeks and see how easy that was for me to do. So there could be a couple of different ways to go about that. So anybody else have anything to add?
I think on that one, tracking is so important, like even if you just try to get to that point by saying this week, I'm going to track where my money goes for this week and then build on that. Because it's such a vague statement that you really need information in order to make it work.
Isn't it so interesting that we look at a concept such as money and we realize that's big. That's going to take a little bit more problem solving to accomplish, right? We're going to have to do a little pre-work on that. But we have such high expectations that we're going to be able to just fix our eating habits and fix our exercise, a little bit more quickly. But I think that same concept applies that we do have to do a little bit more background work and identifying, what are our barriers to something like exercise? What brings us joy when it comes to exercise? So it doesn't feel like just a chore, right? But that we're actually kind of feeling some fun and joy from it. So that's a good point you make. I like that. All right, very good. So I want to hear from you guys now. What is your SMART goal? What is it that you want to work on maybe for the next week, for the next month? What is your SMART goal that you've been able to identify for yourself? And go ahead and share it in the chat or unmute and answer. Somebody makes a statement in the chat here that says tracking is a great idea. She's talking about finances. She says also for me, notice how often and where I go spending at sales and closeouts. Yes. Do I really need that stuff? After all, a good price doesn't mean I need it. That is a good financial statement. Very good. All right. I know you guys are working hard on your SMART goals. I am looking forward to hearing them and seeing them in the chat.
Just had some work done and discovered that my cholesterol is extremely high. So my goal, my SMART goal is to become knowledgeable about what cholesterol comes from and then start working on the goals to reduce the cholesterol. I don't think it's going to be that difficult. It's going to cause me some stress because there's a lot of things that I love to eat and I know I'm going to have to give up. But it is frightening how high the cholesterol is, and that's my goal. That's my SMART goal. That's what I want to do.
I love that you've acknowledged the fact that, there's this condition that has been discussed in your provider appointments.
Yes.
And, you're acknowledging the fact that you do have to do a little bit of background work first before creating that goal, right? It's
Yes.
that problem solving before we can be successful. I actually really love that. So my suggestion to you would be to look at things like the American Heart Association's website, right? Heart.org has really great resources and articles on blood cholesterol levels. And I think, Wendy, you were the one that mentioned red meat, but you also look at like decreasing red meat. We also talk about what can we increase to replace that, right?
Yes.
To make it more positive. It's not what I'm giving up, it's what am I gaining. And so we look at, fiber sources as being so influential and impactful in decreasing cholesterol levels too, that we might look at that and say, what can I add to our diet to help? So it doesn't feel restrictive or that I'm losing out on something, because you did say it that it tastes good, those cholesterol containing foods.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you guys are being quiet. I'm not seeing any SMART goals in the chat. Are you nothing?
Mine was in regards to the red meat and
Oh, yeah.
that's gonna be fairly easy, I think, as I can track it. And I think I'll set like a goal that I'll have two, two times a week, I will have red meat, so I can track that easily. And then build on that, but can also add to that that I hate drinking water. I hate it. And every time I attempt to drink more, I go at it gung ho and I'm like, I have to have, 8 glasses a day. And I get so sick of it right away. So I think I can break that down and say this first week, I will intentionally drink 2 glasses every day. And then build and say next week it's 3 as I get more used to taking that on.
Mhm. And just acknowledging that you don't like it, right? And so, I mean, maybe some of you guys have some suggestions in the group about what we can do to maybe make water taste a little bit better. So, maybe it's the 2 glasses of plain water, but what can we do to spice up that water to maybe make it taste a little bit better and enjoyable for us? I, of course, think about, adding maybe a lemon slice or an orange slice, or getting one of those pitchers in which you can infuse the like blueberries and strawberries or kiwi or orange slices, right in the center of the pitcher. So those flavors, kind of marinate and get into the water. If you guys have any other suggestions there, please feel free to add, because this is all about problem solving when it comes to goal setting. And so then I'm seeing other goals in the chat. Setting 10 minutes a day to meditate for 2 weeks and then increasing that time to 20 minutes. I love that you already have that kind of extra built in, right? So at the end of 2 weeks, you're doing the 10 minutes a day. And then from there, you're slowly increasing that time by 10 more minutes and starting slow and working with that. I like it. All right, other goals I'm seeing in the chat: look and feel better, spending the next 12 weeks focusing on food and exercise habits. Yep, very good. SMART goal: exercise every day, every morning between 6 and 6:30 for 20 minutes on equipment, 5-minute warm up, 5-minute cool down. Love how specific that is. It is measurable. You're going to be doing that for 20 minutes every morning, 6 to 6:30, and then also kind of giving yourself a little flexibility, right? I don't know what your life is, but if anybody else is looking at that goal and saying, 6 o'clock in the morning to 6:30, it's a tight time frame, right? And that absolutely might work for you. But if somebody else is looking at that, that's where kind of that grace and flexibility comes in, where, maybe we're looking at that 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and maybe that works some days, but sometimes we have to create a little flexibility, and maybe we're doing it at an alternative time. That's the flexibility. That does not mean that we fail at our goals. Somebody says cucumber water is so refreshing in the summer. Slices of cucumber in ice water as a suggestion to your water intake. Absolutely. Good. Good. All right. Anybody else? I see a couple more people unmuted. Yes.
I have a question. What are your thoughts on those water bottles that have, so going back to the water bottle conversation, that have kind of these demarcation, like they're different times to just kind of track how you're drinking? Does that get overwhelming or not helpful?
Yeah, I've not used it myself, but I could see how it would be motivating. Maybe it could be overwhelming to some people, but I think that what I've heard from most people when I have this conversation about water, because believe me, this is a struggle for many people, is to get enough water in. What I have heard a lot of people be successful with is if they're drinking bottles of water, like the 16.9-ounce bottles of water, putting 3 of those out on the kitchen counter, right? And so, right, you grab one, you're drinking it, you've got 2 more sitting out there that have to be done by the end of the day. So it's the same kind of concept. I hear a lot more people having success in that, but I'm not saying that people don't have success. And if anybody has their experience on those big water bottles that say by, this level, 9 a.m., I should have drinking this amount of water, by noon, I'm at this level, this is how much water. It kind of keeps you on task. And that's really kind of that tracking. I think that would be helpful. Thanks for sharing. Decaf herbal hot tea in the winter is a good way to get your water intake. Absolutely. That's a really good point that, we're talking also about the importance of fluids, non-caloric fluids, right? So decaf herbal hot tea is a really good way to stay hydrated in a different way during the winter time, especially if we don't necessarily want to be colder when we're drinking our cold water during the winter. All right, and then we've got one more statement here, working on picking up the clutter in the house. So picking up clutter for 15 minutes on Wednesdays each week. Try that for a month. After a month, I will see if I need to increase that to 2 days. Maybe I can get to a point of putting it right place by the end of 6 months. Yes, and that ultimately is the goal, right? That it's ultimately changing that behavior, that it becomes that end of that time frame that we have accomplished that goal. It started to become a habit, but maybe that at the end of that one SMART goal, we haven't quite finished what we want to in the long term. That's okay, as long as we're continuing to work on that. Again, progress is not linear. All right, you guys have good goals. I love that you guys are going to be working on some things. So I appreciate you guys sharing all of that information, kind of chit-chatting and talking that out and doing some problem solving with each other around goal development. So, today we were able to discuss the benefits of goals, how they are, important, and that creating important goals are good for you, but also allowing for that grace, as somebody stated, and that flexibility. We learned how to make SMART goals. We practiced how to make SMART goals. And some of you guys have created a SMART goal for yourself to work on. So I want to leave you with our upcoming classes for the month of June and a few of the classes in February. I was mentioning at the beginning of class that all of these classes are free and virtual most often. Of course, we might be starting some in-person classes again here soon, but we have got a class on January 24th and 25th. We've got those cooking classes. Some of them are full already. So take a look at the February and March classes, and especially the cooking classes. Look at those February and March classes and sign up early because they've been getting full. So we hope to see you at one of our future classes. You would just go to bronsonhealth.com, type in the chat or in the search bar on Bronson, type in Bronson Eats, and it will show you all of these classes. This is exactly where I got this picture from. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Yes.
Tina?
Yes.
Oh, I have a quick question. I know this is being recorded. Is this something that we can?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, is that something that we can go back to and listen to?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you wanted to say something private off of recording, so I could shut the recording off. The recording will be available on YouTube in 1 to 2 weeks. All of our past virtual healthy living classes that we've done for about the past year, maybe year and a half, are all available on the YouTube channel. So you would just go to YouTube, search for Bronson Healthcare, and then when you're looking at that YouTube channel, you are going to see different playlists. It will be like dietitian, it'll be provider. All of these classes are listed under wellness classes. So we have recordings up there on, the Mediterranean diet, the importance of walking. We've got some featured classes on the health benefits and utilizing apples during the fall season. So we've got some fun and educational classes. They're all available on YouTube. So this class will be up there as well in 1 to 2 weeks. And then in addition, if you go to that bronsonhealth.com website and search Bronson Eats, you'll find the list of all of our upcoming classes, but you'll also find a 1-page PDF summary of all of our past classes too. So we will have that available for our SMART goals. So you can kind of print it out and kind of get an overview in a written format if you don't necessarily want to watch a full 1-hour recording too. Very good. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. It's so great to spend the last hour with you guys. I hope you guys are successful in your SMART goal creations and your long-term vision for your life. I appreciate you all, and I look forward to seeing you guys again in future classes. Thank you.